down to Victoria and revelations about how much was spent on the Coate Inquiry, which told us, bugger all, $7.7 million. That's how much taxpayers forked out for the Andrews government ministers and the Premier and fat cat public servants and the lot, all their legal fees. This is in addition to what the Coate Inquiry itself costs. We're talking about the legal fees at QCs and law firms that ministers, politicians and public servants spent defending themselves in front of Coate. 800 dead, as I'll say time and time again, and the loss of over 200,000 jobs in Victoria. In fact, more Victorian money, as I said, was spent by the Premier and ministers than the inquiry itself, which spent about $5 million to run it. Now, for more on all of this, I'm joined now from Melbourne by Victorian Liberal MP Richard Riordan, who has led the charge, I must say, in trying to at least hold the government to account over this spending, even if we didn't get any answers. Richard, let's go to this issue about how much this inquiry has cost us. As I said, we don't know who made these fateful decisions. I don't believe it, but that's what we're told. We don't have any individuals held to account, but we're certainly paying for it, aren't we?
Certainly are, Peter, and thank you very much for the chance to try and get this message out to Victorians and Australians. Daniel Andrews and his band of, allegedly senior ministers have not only gone for the best part of a year now, leading the charge on a single approach to dealing with the COVID crisis. They've ignored advice and feedback from one day to the next. I mean, they've put in the inquiry in an attempt to sort of placate the critics around the traps, and yourself included. And here we find out, after the best part of 2 months trying to get to the bottom of what it cost, we're learning now that the inquiry, it's cost 60% more for the Premier and his senior ministers to be represented than the whole inquiry itself. I mean, this is a case of senior ministers and Andrews showing complete and utter contempt for Victorians. They're treating the treasury as if it's their own piggy bank. They're reaching their hands in, grabbing hard-earned people's money. And we find this, Peter, we learn this today. At the same time, we find out that as little as 12% of the money that they promised small business, hard-working mums and dads and small businesses across Victoria, less than 12% of the money that they've promised them to help them during this time, they can't find. Presumably they've forgotten what they promised. And then we're just finding out the chequebook is endless. It's a limitless credit card going to pay fees. And keep in mind, the $7 million figure is only an estimate. It's not even finalised yet.
You are spot on. The lawyers will be tallying up their bills for some time to come. I just can't credit why you can spend, or how you can possibly spend, $15,000 to sort of $25,000 a day for some of these very senior QCs, when ministers then front the inquiry and say, I can't remember. I don't know why you need to pay someone $25,000 a day if all you're going to say to the Coate Inquiry is, I don't remember. And I think almost as bad as all of this, Richard Riordan, is the fact that we found out today too that they fought tooth and nail, the Andrews government, to stop the story about the expenditure becoming public. Now, this is not dissimilar to the $4 million the Victoria Police spent trying to keep the Lawyer X scandal out of the public domain. I mean, they took that issue all the way to the High Court. I don't understand how the Premier gets away with this. This is Daniel Andrews, this is Martin Pakula, this is others with this sort of expenditure at the time the Victorian businesses today are going to the wall.
Yeah, look, absolutely, Peter. I mean, Victorians may have had some sympathy if they were employing hypnotists to help them remember, but they weren't doing that. They were employing people to make sure every person in the chain of information during this whole saga last year was legally represented to the most expensive and most extravagant extent. And when, as you said, when there are still mum and dad businesses, particularly people in the entertainment, in the tourism, in the hospitality, in the small front shops. I mean, Melbourne's representing a ghost town in the CBD at the moment with the amount of shops shutting. I mean, I come up to Melbourne from the country just for Parliament. I mean, I'm in shock at the amount of for lease signs. I mean, this is devastation on a massive scale. And to think that Andrews is prepared to just shrug it off, pretend, look, oh, there's nothing to look here. You know, we're We're entitled to representation. Yes, Premier, you are entitled, but you're also entitled to be responsible, to be fair, to be reasonable, and to put the best interests of Victorians first. Not your own pork barrelling to keep your numbers and your ministers happy. You are there to have the truth and to be accountable. And this is just writ large an extravagance and a contempt for the people of Victoria.
All right, the other story that I picked up over the weekend, help me understand this. Why have Victorian authorities allowed over 5,000 prisoners out of Victorian jails early, they say, due to COVID-19? Now, this is a report in the Herald Sun. It's also a same report that told us over $300,000 had been spent buying Samsung tablets, like an iPad for prisoners to FaceTime their contacts, given their visits during COVID lockdowns were cancelled. Do you know how many nursing homes got free tablets so that people in the nursing home who couldn't see their family members were able to FaceTime them?
No, look, I think the answer would be big fat zero. And once again, it shows the contempt and the lack of connection to the rest of the community. In this case, we've tallied it up. It's nearly 1,000 years worth of sentence shortening that's gone on here in Victoria in essentially 8 months. At the same time, every single Victorian in metropolitan Melbourne was locked in their own homes. They didn't get reprieve. Not only that, if you're a small business operator or owner, many, in fact thousands, are still trying to get the meagre bit of assistance that the government promised them. As I said earlier, Peter, they promised $100 million for sole traders. They've only given out $12 million. I mean, the hospitality, the tourism, the entertainment industry, we've had them knocking our doors down, saying, we've just got nothing. We can't take bookings, we can't organise anything, because we don't trust not only Daniel Andrews to figure out a border mess, but who's going to bother to book tickets and travel interstate and come to Victoria when they could be locked there and put in quarantine at a moment's notice. It is complete chaos here, and their priorities are just so wrong.
Richard Riordan, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Good, Peter. Thank you.